Hello guys, today as promised, I would like to go over the basic Angular application structure and explain the most important parts. Also, I want to ask you for leaving likes and subscribing to the channel because it helps me out to create new videos and keeps me motivated. So for now, let's get started. On the screen, you can see the application from the previous video, which one we have generated using Angular CLI. We will start with src folder, which stands for source, I believe, and it is the most important folder in the application because it's the place where our application is living. So we will find here components, templates, and styles, but also images and icons. First is application subfolder. So this is the place where our main component is living. It is called app component and consists of 4 files. First one is TypeScript file app component over here. It has 2 important elements. First one is the class where we will put all the logic and the data. Second element is the component decorator, which one holds the metadata for our component. And as you can see, we have link to style sheets for our component over here. We have also the view, which is controlled by this component, and also selector. Basically, selector allows us to embed our view controlled by the component inside other components, or in this case, inside the main index.html file. So as you can see, it is called uproot. And if you go to the main.html file, over here between the body tags, we will see uproot tags. After running the application, instead of these tags will be rendered the view controlled by our component. So if you go to the TypeScript file of our component, we can see that it controls the app component.html view. So in the place of our tags will be displayed this view over here. Now we will try to create a new component, and also we'll try to embed it inside the root component. So now to generate a new component, we have to use Angular CLI. So let's go to the terminal and let's type ng, which stands for Angular. After this, we have to type what we want to do. So in our case, we want to generate, or we can use the shorthand and type just the G. After this, we have to say what we want to generate. So in our case, it will be component. And last thing we have to do is pass the name of our component. So it will be hello world. And after hitting the enter, Angular CLI generated for us a basic component. Inside app folder, Angular CLI created the folder with the name of our component. And if we open it, we can see that it has the same structure as the root component structure. Inside our component folder, we have empty CSS file. We have also view with some default paragraph inside. Also, we have TypeScript file, which one has the class that controls our view, and also we have some unit test over here. So the structure is exactly the same as it was in the root component. Before we try to embed our new component inside the root component, we have to check one more file, and it is app module file, which is located under our root component over here. Every Angular application has root module like this, and what it does, it's basically launching our application using bootstrap mechanism. So It's just the entry point of every Angular application. It looks pretty much like a regular component TypeScript file. We have some imports at the top of our file that our application needs to run. We also have decorator function with some metadata, and as you can see in the declaration array, we have our root component, app component, and also we have the hello world component, which one we have created using Angular CLI. And the cool thing about using Angular CLI is that it added the necessary import over here in the line 6 with our component we have created. And also it added our component to the declaration array. Without it, our component would not work. We also have the imports array where we can import different modules, and by default we have imported browser module. In the providers array over here, we should add all the services our application is using. Services are basically the classes responsible for data and the logic that is not directly related with the views. And the last bootstrap array is the place where we are defining the starting point of our application. So in our case, it will be the root component called app component. So after running the application, the first thing that will be rendered after the index.html will be the view related to app component. Okay, so we have covered the basics, and now we can embed our new component inside the root component. But first, let's run the application. To build and run our application, we have to use Angular CLI. So we type ng. After this, we want to use serve command because it will allow us to build and run our application. And we also want to use open flag, which will open our application in the web browser. So we hit enter, and after a second, it should open. Now our application is running, and basically the content you can see over here is the view controlled by our root component. So if we go to the root component class, we can see here that this component is controlling this view over here in the line 5. And if we jump to this view, we can see this view over here and this HTML file is exactly the same because it also has the Angular logo and some hyperlinks over here. Now we can finally embed our hello world component inside the root component. First thing we have to do is check the hello world component selector. So we go to the hello world component class, and over here we can see the selector. So I will just copy this. And now we go to the root component view, and we will put our hello world somewhere between this logo and these hyperlinks. So I think it will be somewhere over here. So we just have to create the tag with our selector like this. Now if we save it, the content from the hello world view should be displayed somewhere over here. So let's save the file. Application is reloading, and as you can see over here, there is the content from the hello world view. Now if we go to this view, we can change the content, and let's say it will be h1, and let's change it to hello Angular. Okay, so now save, and as you can see, there is our message. Okay, so we have covered the most important part, which is app folder, and now we can move forward. Next position on our list is assets folder, and it is basically the place where you can put all the resources your application need, for example, images. Next on the list is environments folder, and this is the place where we can define different files for different environments we are working with. Also, in each of these files, we can define different values for different environments. After this, we have the icon displayed in the tab of the browser over here. We can change it to whatever we want. Next on the list is index.html file, which is basically the container for our root component. After index file, we have main TypeScript file, which is the entry point of our application, and it is responsible for compiling our application using just-in-time compiler, and also bootstraps the root module of our application. Next on the list is Polyfills File, and this is the place where you can implement functionality for different browser support. In addition to styles, for each component, we also have some global styles. And there we can put some CSS rules for our entire application. After global styles, we have test TypeScript file, which is the entry point for our unit test. But this is not the place we will have to edit. At the end of the source folder, we have two JSON files, and they are responsible for the compiler configuration for our Angular application. Last is the typings file, and this is the place where we can inform our compiler about external libraries we are using. If we will use library that is not defined inside typings file, our compiler will not recognize it and will throw an error. And I think it is all you have to know about the source folder. We also have the folder that is called E2E, and it stands for end-to-end tests. Inside we can find some test files, and also what is worth to mention, it has its own JSON config file. Last folder of our application is Node modules. This folder is created by Node.js, and also this is the place where all the third-party modules are located. You can see that there is a lot of these modules inside. Okay, so we have covered all the folders, and we are moving to the end. Next file is Angular CLI.json, and basically it's the configuration for Angular CLI. This is just a huge JSON object. And we also have editor config file, which holds the configuration for our editor. We also have gitignore file, and basically it's the place where we can put some files that we don't want to commit to our repository. And also it makes sure that auto-generated files are not committed. We also have Karma configuration JavaScript file for Karma unit tests. We also have package.json, which is npm configuration, and inside we can find the list of all the third-party modules our application is using. Next on the list is Protractor configuration file, and the Protractor is an end-to-end test framework for Angular and AngularJS applications. After this, we have README markdown file, and this is the place for the basic documentation of our project. By default, it has some informations about CLI commands like ngserve and nggenerate, and also some others like ngbuild and ngtests. We also have tsconfig.json file, which is responsible for TypeScript compiler configuration. And the last is tslint.json, And this file is holding the configuration for linting. Okay guys, I think I have covered everything that is important. I hope now you will have better understanding of the Angular application structure, because there is a lot of files and it can be a bit overwhelming. I hope to see you in the next video, and remember to like and subscribe. See ya!